the British government is not alone in not following your advice when it comes to lockdown. Almost every major government in the democratic world has been forced into lockdowns, various forms of them. Politicians, governments of very different political hues, whether it's Governor Cuomo in New York, or President Macron in France, or Chancellor Merkel in Germany, or whoever was Prime Minister back then. I can't remember then, it's now Mr. Draghi, but back then, whoever was Prime Minister in Italy, they had to do lockdowns too, particularly in the north. I mean, there has to be something to the argument that if all these governments saw that was the right way, there has to be something in that.
Only if they were making an independent judgment. In fact, what was happening is that they were all copying each other because they were afraid that their own populations would say, oh, look, in the country next door they're doing this, why aren't you doing something similar? The fact is that before the lockdowns were ordered, all governments that had done serious studies about this, including our own, had a policy based on serious scientific advice that they would not lock people down. You can take our example, for example, and I'll mention Germany in a moment. In this country, we had been planning for an event exactly like this for more than 10 years. It was top of the National Risk Register. In 2011, a detailed plan, which was kept regularly up to date, was prepared as to how to deal with it. And the basic principles behind that plan were, first of all, that you did not use coercion, you used advice to the population, but you allowed them to make their own risk assessments. And secondly, that you did not isolate or take abrasive measures against the healthy. You concentrated on isolating the infectious and the sick. Now, strikingly enough, exactly the same principles lay behind the German National Pandemic Plan, which was drawn up by the Robert Koch Institute, which is a highly respected body. They all, those that have published plans, worked along exactly the same lines, and the World Health Organization also recommended exactly that approach. So what we have here is governments independently forming the view that they should take a less abrasive attitude to major pandemics, and then all copying each other and throwing out the window 10 years worth of careful scientific and administrative planning. That does not do credit to any of these governments. They basically jettisoned their own research. Now, I've heard it said that nobody expected that there would be any pandemic, anything like as serious as this. I'm afraid that is simply untrue. The 2017 edition of the National Risk Register in this country envisaged that a new pathogen might cause deaths up to 750,000. Not even Professor Ferguson has suggested that the deaths would have been anything like that on any of the various hypotheses. So what we have actually done is to reject the scientific approach, to adopt a policy that fails to discriminate between different degrees of vulnerability, and that is scientifically disreputable. The reason why this is happening is the fear of populations across Europe and their belief that if their governments are not doing something abrasive and hyperactive about it, they are going to sleep on the job. That's never been true. They had very careful plans and they should have adhered to them.
Can't you see it too? There's an elephant in the room.